The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Maya stared at the spreadsheet on her computer screen. Another day, another stack of tax returns to process. She glanced at the clock. 4:47 p.m. 13 minutes until she could leave. Her desk sat in the corner of the accounting firm, tucked between the copy machine and the water cooler. For 17 years, this had been her world. Numbers, deadlines, and the constant hum of the office air conditioning. At 42 years old, Maya had built a life that was safe, predictable, and quietly suffocating. She grabbed her purse at exactly 5 o'clock and headed to the parking lot. The drive home took 35 minutes, and it was during those 35 minutes that Maya became someone else entirely. As soon as she merged onto the highway, she reached for the CD player. The opening notes of an old opera recording filled her Toyota Camry, and Maya began to sing. Her voice soared over the traffic noise, hitting notes that seemed impossible for someone who'd never had a single voice lesson. Drivers in other cars couldn't hear her, which was exactly how she wanted it. This was her secret, her escape, the one thing in her life that felt truly hers. Maya had been singing like this since she was 8 years old. Her father, who had worked double shifts at the textile factory, had one prized possession: a small CD player and a collection of opera recordings that he'd saved up to buy. Every Sunday morning he would play them while making breakfast. He'd tell Maya that music was proof that beauty could exist anywhere, even in their tiny apartment above the convenience store. When her father passed away 10 years ago, Maya inherited that CD player. She kept it in her car, and every single day she sang along to those same recordings. But only in the car, never anywhere else. Never in front of anyone. The reason was simple. Maya had learned early on that people laughed when someone like her sang opera. She wasn't tall and elegant. She didn't have the right look. She worked with numbers, not music. And somewhere along the way, she'd convinced herself that some dreams were meant to stay private. Her mother was waiting when Maya walked through the front door. At 78, she needed help with most things now. Maya prepared dinner, helped her mother with her medication, and settled her in front of the television. By the time she finished the dishes, it was almost 9 o'clock. This was her routine. Work, drive, sing in the car, take care of mom, sleep, repeat. It was fine. It was enough. Or at least that's what Maya told herself every single day. Everything changed on a random Thursday afternoon 3 months before the competition. Maya's coworker Jennifer had convinced her to go out for drinks after work. It was someone's birthday, and Maya rarely said no to these invitations, even though small talk exhausted her. They ended up at a karaoke bar downtown. Maya nursed a single glass of wine and watched her coworkers take turns singing pop songs, some better than others. Everyone was laughing, having fun, and no one was taking it seriously. "Come on, Maya. Your turn," Jennifer shouted over the music. Maya shook her head firmly. No, I don't sing in public. Everyone sings at karaoke. That's the whole point." Jennifer grabbed her hand. "Just one song. Please, for me?" Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the fact that the lights were dim and the crowd was small. Or maybe after 42 years, something inside Maya was tired of hiding. She found herself walking to the stage, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She scrolled through the song list, looking for something, anything familiar. And there it was. A simplified version of one of the pieces her father used to play. Her hands shook as she selected it. The music started. Maya closed her eyes and pretended she was in her car. Just her and the music. Nothing else existed. She sang the way she always did, letting her voice fill the space, forgetting for a moment that anyone was listening. When she finished, there was silence. Maya opened her eyes, terrified that she'd made a fool of herself. But everyone was staring at her with their mouths open. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. Her coworkers were standing up, cheering, looking at her like they'd never seen her before. "Maya, oh my God, why didn't you tell us you could sing like that?"
Jennifer rushed over, her eyes wide.
"That was incredible." Maya felt her face turn red. She mumbled something about it being nothing and quickly returned to her seat. But the rest of the night, people kept coming up to her, asking questions, complimenting her voice. It was overwhelming and uncomfortable and secretly, just a little bit wonderful. The next morning, Jennifer appeared at Maya's desk with her phone. "You have to see this." Someone had recorded Maya's karaoke performance and posted it on social media. It had been shared dozens of times. People were leaving comments. Nice comments. Compliments about her voice. Questions about whether she was a professional singer. Maya felt sick. Can you ask them to take it down? Take it down? Are you crazy? Maya, you're talented. Like really talented. Jennifer sat on the edge of Maya's desk. Have you ever thought about performing? I mean, really performing? I'm an accountant, Jennifer. I process tax returns. I don't perform. But you could. Jennifer scrolled on her phone. Look, there's this regional talent competition next month. They're still accepting applications. You should enter. Maya laughed, but it came out nervous and shaky. That's ridiculous. Those competitions are for young people. For people who actually know what they're doing. So what? What's the worst that could happen? Maya could think of 100 terrible things that could happen. She could embarrass herself in front of thousands of people. She could prove that she was just an ordinary middle-aged woman with a pipe dream. She could fail publicly and spectacularly. But Jennifer kept pushing. She showed Maya the competition website, read the rules out loud, and even offered to help her fill out the application. And somehow, against every instinct telling her no, Maya found herself saying yes. The application asked for a performance video. Maya recorded herself singing in her living room after her mother went to bed, using her phone propped up on a stack of books. She watched it back once, cringed at how she looked on camera, and almost deleted everything. But then she thought about her father, about those Sunday mornings, about the way he'd told her that beauty could exist anywhere. She hit submit before she could change her mind. 6 weeks later, an email arrived. She'd been selected to compete. The show would be held at the downtown theater in front of 2,000 people and a panel of 3 professional judges. It would be filmed. It would be broadcast on local television. Maya read the email 5 times, her hands shaking. What had she done? This wasn't her. She couldn't do this. She was just someone who sang in her car. But the competition was in 3 days and it was too late to back out now. Maya stood backstage at the theater, wearing a dress her sister had lent her that didn't quite fit right. Listening to the crowd murmur on the other side of the curtain, her stomach churned. Her palms were sweating. A production assistant with a clipboard appeared. You're up next. Are you ready? Maya wasn't ready. She would never be ready. But she nodded anyway, and took the first step toward the stage that would change everything. The stage lights hit Maya like a physical force. She'd never experienced anything like it. Bright, hot, blinding. She couldn't see the audience clearly. Just a sea of dark shapes beyond the light. But she could hear them. 2,000 people shifting in their seats, whispering, waiting. Maya took 3 steps forward, and that's when she heard it. A giggle, then another. The whispers got louder. She knew what they were seeing. A 42-year-old woman in a borrowed dress that was slightly too tight around the middle and too loose at the shoulders. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail because she didn't know how else to style it. She wore minimal makeup because she never learned to apply it properly. And her shoes were basic black flats from a discount store because she couldn't walk in heels. She looked exactly like what she was, an accountant who had no business being on this stage. The 3 judges sat at a long table in front of the stage. The woman on the left was checking her phone. The man in the middle was already writing something on his notepad. Only the judge on the right was actually looking at Maya, and his expression wasn't encouraging. Maya's mouth went dry. Her hands trembled at her sides. This was a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. The middle judge, a man in his 50s with perfectly styled gray hair, looked up from his notes. And what's your name? Maya. Her voice came out small, almost a whisper. The microphone barely picked it up. You'll need to speak up, Maya. There are 2,000 people here. He smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who was already bored. Sorry, my name is Maya. Louder this time, but her voice cracked slightly. And what do you do, Maya? I'm an accountant. Someone in the audience laughed. Then more people joined in. It wasn't mean laughter, not exactly. It was the kind of laughter that said they'd already decided how this would go. The accountant would sing something badly, they'd all feel a little awkward, and then they'd move on to the next performer. The judge on the right leaned forward. She was younger than the others, maybe in her late 30s, wearing glasses and a serious expression. What are you going to perform for us today? Maya's throat felt tight. Nessun Dorma. The laughter got louder. Someone in the front row actually said, "Oh boy," loud enough for the microphone to catch it. Nessun Dorma was one of the most famous and difficult opera pieces ever written. It was bold. It was ambitious. And for someone who looked like Maya, standing on that stage in her discount store shoes, it seemed completely ridiculous. The middle judge put down his pen entirely. That's quite a challenging piece. Have you had professional training? No, sir. No training at all? No. He exchanged a look with the other judges. The woman on the left finally put down her phone, probably sensing that this was going to be entertainingly bad. Well, the middle judge said, his tone making it clear he expected nothing. Let's hear it then. The production assistant in the wings gave Maya a thumbs up. The music would start in 10 seconds. Maya had 10 seconds to run off this stage, get in her car, and drive away from this humiliation. 10 seconds to go back to her safe, quiet life where nobody laughed at her, but her feet wouldn't move. The opening notes filled the theater. Maya closed her eyes. She couldn't look at the judges. She couldn't look at the audience. She could only think about her father, about Sunday mornings, about the way he'd hold her hand and tell her that she had something special inside her. She opened her mouth to sing and nothing came out. The music played. The moment came and went. Maya had missed her entrance. She heard someone in the audience groan. The female judge took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. This was worse than singing badly. This was failing before she even started. The music looped back for a second chance. The production team was giving her one more opportunity. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. Her vision blurred. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but then she heard it. In her mind, clear as day, her father's voice. Maya, beauty can exist anywhere, even in you. Especially in you. The entrance came again, and this time Maya sang. The first note wobbled. Her voice shook with nerves, thin and uncertain. It wasn't good. She knew it wasn't good. The middle judge started writing on his notepad again, probably documenting this disaster. One of the camera operators turned his camera away, already looking for a better shot of the audience's reactions. Maya pushed through to the second phrase, but her breathing was all wrong. The nerves were strangling her voice. She sounded exactly like what everyone expected. An amateur. A dreamer who should have stayed in her car. Tears started forming in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of frustration, because she knew she was better than this. In her car, alone, she could hit these notes. She could feel the music. But here, under these lights, with all these people watching and judging and laughing, she was falling apart. The music continued. She was approaching the difficult section, the part where the voice needed to soar, where the real skill showed. Maya knew she should just get through it safely, hit the notes close enough, and get off this stage with whatever dignity she had left. But something shifted inside her. Maybe it was the tears already falling down her face. Maybe it was the certainty that she'd already failed and had nothing left to lose. Or maybe it was the memory of 17 years of singing alone, of hiding this part of herself, of playing it safe every single day of her adult life. What was the point of finally being on stage if she was going to sing like she was still hiding? Maya stopped trying to control her breathing. She stopped worrying about technique or form or what she looked like. She stopped thinking about the judges or the audience or the cameras. She just opened her mouth and let everything out. Every lonely drive home from work. Every Sunday morning with her father. Every dream she'd pushed down and buried. Every moment she'd made herself smaller to fit into other people's expectations. It all came pouring out in a single, sustained note that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her chest. The wobble disappeared. Her voice didn't just steady. It transformed. The note filled the theater, rich and powerful and absolutely certain. It wasn't the voice of an amateur or an accountant or a middle-aged woman in a borrowed dress. It was the voice of someone who had been waiting 42 years to be heard. The middle judge's pen stopped moving. He looked up slowly, his expression changing from dismissive to confused to something else entirely. The female judge leaned forward in her seat. Even the judge on the left, who had seemed completely checked out, put both hands flat on the table and stared. Maya kept singing. The difficult passages came and she hit them, not perfectly, not with the polish of a trained professional, but with something that technique couldn't teach. Raw emotion, truth, pain and joy and everything in between. The camera operator who had turned away swung his camera back, zooming in on Maya's face. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. This wasn't about the competition anymore. This wasn't about winning or impressing anyone. This was about finally letting the world hear the music that had lived inside her for so long. The audience had gone completely silent. No more whispers. No more giggles. 2,000 people sat frozen, listening to an accountant from nowhere sing her heart out on a stage she had no business being on. And as Maya approached the final, climactic note, the one that required every ounce of breath and courage she had, she opened her eyes for the first time since she'd started singing. She looked directly at the judges, then out at the audience beyond the lights, and she gave them everything she had left. The final note hung in the air for what felt like forever. Maya's chest heaved as she fought to catch her breath. The last echo of her voice faded into the corners of the theater, and then there was nothing. Complete silence, 2,000 people, not a sound. Maya's heart sank. The silence felt like judgment. They hated it. They were probably too shocked by how badly she'd done to even know how to react. She'd poured everything into that performance, left herself completely exposed, and now she was standing here in front of everyone, tears on her face, waiting for the mercy of polite applause so she could leave. She started to step back from the microphone. Then someone in the back row stood up. Maya couldn't see who it was through the stage lights, but she heard the chair creak. Then another person stood. Then 10 more. Then entire rows were rising to their feet. The applause started like thunder. It wasn't polite. It wasn't the kind of clapping people do because they're supposed to. It was loud and messy and real. People were shouting. Someone whistled. The sound rolled over Maya in waves, and she just stood there frozen, unable to process what was happening. The middle judge, the one who'd been so dismissive, slowly rose from his chair. His face was red, and Maya realized with shock that he was crying. Actually crying. He brought his hands together and clapped hard, looking directly at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Respect, maybe, or disbelief. The female judge was already on her feet, applauding so hard her glasses bounced on her nose. She was smiling wide, shaking her head back and forth like she couldn't believe what she'd just witnessed. Even the third judge, the one who'd been on her phone, stood up. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes were wet. The standing ovation continued. 30 seconds, a minute. People in the front rows were wiping their eyes. A woman in the third row was openly sobbing, clutching her husband's arm. Maya saw all of this through her own tears, which were falling faster now, and she didn't know if she was crying from relief or joy or shock or all of it at once. She tried to say thank you, but her voice wouldn't work. She just stood there, overwhelmed, as the audience kept clapping. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. The production assistant in the wings was gesturing for her to exit, but Maya's legs felt like water. Finally, the middle judge raised his hand, asking for quiet. It took another 30 seconds for the applause to die down. People were still standing. The judge picked up his microphone, and Maya noticed his hand was shaking slightly. In 23 years of judging competitions, he said, his voice rougher than before, I have never, and I mean never, heard anything like that. He paused, swallowing hard. When you walked out here, I thought I knew exactly what this was going to be. I was wrong. Completely wrong. The audience murmured in agreement. The female judge took her microphone. Maya, where did that come from? That wasn't just singing. That was... She struggled to find the words. That was 42 years of life. Every bit of it. I felt every single emotion. You weren't performing for us. You were sharing something real. Maya managed to find her voice. Thank you. I was thinking about my father. He loved music like this. He passed away 10 years ago, and I've been singing to him ever since. In my car, every day. The third judge spoke for the first time. You've never performed before? Never had training? No, ma'am. That's impossible. I sing in my car on the way home from work, Maya said, and a few people in the audience laughed, but this time it was warm laughter. The kind that said they understood. They got it. The middle judge shook his head slowly. Maya, I don't know what's going to happen with this competition, but I need you to understand something. What you just did up here, that changed something. For me, certainly, but I think for everyone in this room. The audience erupted in applause again. Maya finally managed to walk off stage on shaking legs. As soon as she got into the wings, her knees buckled and she had to grab onto a piece of equipment to steady herself. The production assistant caught her arm. That was incredible, she whispered. I've worked here for 5 years and I've never seen anything like that. Maya made it to the backstage area where performers waited between rounds. Several other contestants were there, and they all stared at her. A young woman, maybe 22, with perfect makeup and a designer dress, walked up to her. "I'm supposed to go on in 2 acts," she said.
How am I supposed to follow that?
Maya didn't know what to say. She sat down on a folding chair and put her face in her hands. Her phone was buzzing in her bag. She pulled it out and saw texts flooding in from Jennifer, from her sister, from people she hadn't talked to in years. The karaoke bar video had gotten a few hundred views, but someone had already recorded her performance tonight on their phone and posted it online. In the 30 minutes since she'd walked off stage, it had been shared thousands of times. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "Mom, I thought you were sleeping." "Sleeping? Maya, the neighbor came over and made me turn on the TV. I just watched you sing. On television. My baby girl." Her mother's voice cracked. "Your father would have been so proud." Maya couldn't hold it together anymore. She sobbed into the phone while her mother talked to her, saying all the things she needed to hear. When she finally hung up, the young contestant in the designer dress was offering her a tissue. "Thank you," Maya said. "Can I ask you something?" The young woman said. "How did you do that? How did you get up there without any training and just become someone else?" Maya thought about it. "I don't think I became someone else. I think I finally stopped pretending to be someone I'm not." The competition continued. Maya made it through to the next round, then the next. But that first performance was the one everyone remembered. By the next morning, the video had been viewed over 1 million times. By that afternoon, the number had climbed to 5 million. Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News stations wanted interviews. A morning talk show invited her to perform. A vocal coach from the city called and offered to train her for free. Random people sent her messages telling her that her performance had made them cry, had inspired them, had changed something in them. Maya went back to work on Monday. She sat at her desk in the corner, between the copy machine and the water cooler, and tried to process tax returns like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. Her coworkers kept stopping by her desk. People from other floors came down just to meet her. Her boss called her into his office at lunch. Maya's stomach dropped. She thought maybe all the attention was becoming a problem, that she was being a distraction. "Maya," he said, "I've worked with you for 17 years. I had no idea you could sing like that. Why didn't you ever say anything?" "I didn't think it mattered," Maya said honestly. "I'm an accountant." "That's what I do. Is it, though?" He leaned back in his chair. "Is that all you are?" The question stayed with Maya for the rest of the day. She'd spent her whole adult life believing she had to be one thing: practical, sensible, the person who did what was expected. But standing on that stage, singing with everything she had, she'd felt more like herself than she had in decades. That evening, driving home, Maya turned on her father's old CD player like always. But this time, when she started to sing along, she didn't turn the volume down at red lights. She didn't care if the person in the next car could hear her. She was done hiding. The competition finals were in 2 weeks. Maya had to choose a new piece to perform, something that would show she wasn't just a one-time miracle, something that would prove the first performance wasn't a fluke. But as she practiced in her living room after her mother went to bed, Maya realized she wasn't nervous anymore. Whatever happened at the finals, she'd already won something more important. She'd won herself back. The competition finals came faster than Maya expected. 2 weeks felt like 2 days. Suddenly she was backstage again, but this time everything was different. Cameras followed her around. People wanted selfies. The other finalists treated her like she was already famous. Maya hated it. She missed the anonymity of that first performance, when she was just a nervous accountant nobody expected anything from. Now the pressure felt crushing. Everyone assumed she'd win. The comments online said things like, "If she doesn't take first place, the competition is rigged, and nobody else even comes close." But Maya knew something they didn't. That first performance had been lightning in a bottle. She'd been so terrified, so raw, that she'd stopped thinking and just felt. Could she do that again? On purpose? With everyone watching and expecting magic? The day before the finals, Maya got a call from a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Maya?" A woman's voice, older, warm. "Yes? My name is Dorothy. You don't know me, but I was in the audience for your first performance. I'm 83 years old, and I've been going to concerts and shows my whole life. I've heard some of the greatest singers in the world. She paused. What you did that night, it reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. I just wanted to call and say thank you. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. Thank you for telling me that. There's something else, Dorothy said. I can hear in your voice that you're scared about tomorrow. Don't be. Whatever happens, you've already given people something beautiful. That doesn't go away just because of one more performance. After they hung up, Maya sat in her car in the parking lot of her apartment building. She thought about Dorothy's words. She thought about all the messages she'd received from people she'd never met. A man who said her performance inspired him to finally tell his family he wanted to be a teacher instead of a lawyer. A woman who'd been silent for 2 years after losing her daughter, who sang for the first time because of Maya's video. A teenager who was being bullied and felt invisible, who said Maya made her feel seen. Maya had been so focused on the competition, on whether she could perform well again, that she'd lost sight of what actually mattered. It wasn't about winning. It had never been about winning. The next evening, Maya stood backstage for the finals. She was the last performer of the night. The other finalists had already gone, and they'd all been incredible. A young man with a voice like velvet, a classically trained soprano with perfect technique, a singer-songwriter who'd brought the whole audience to tears with an original song. Maya listened to each performance on the monitor backstage, and with each one she felt smaller. They were so good, so polished. She was just someone who sang in her car. The production assistant appeared. "You're up in 5 minutes, Maya. How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Maya admitted. "Good," the assistant said, smiling. "That means you care." Maya walked to the wings. She could hear the host on stage building up the anticipation. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. The performer whose first audition has been viewed over 50 million times online. "Please welcome back to the stage, Maya." The applause was deafening before she even appeared. Maya stepped into the lights, and this time she could see the audience more clearly. Every seat was filled. People were standing in the aisles. The theater had sold out within hours of tickets going on sale. But Maya's eyes found one specific spot in the third row. Her mother sat there in a wheelchair, dressed in her best outfit, flanked by Maya's sister and Jennifer from work. Maya had bought them tickets, never really believing her mother would be strong enough to come. But there she was, clapping and crying at the same time. The middle judge, the one who'd cried at her first performance, smiled at her. "Maya, welcome back. The whole world has been waiting for this. What are you going to sing for us tonight?" Maya had changed her song choice 3 times. She'd practiced different pieces, worked with the vocal coach who'd offered to help her, tried to find something that would impress everyone. But standing there looking at her mother, she knew none of that mattered. "I'm going to sing Ave Maria," she said. It was my father's favorite. He played it every Sunday morning. She saw her mother put both hands over her heart. Her sister leaned over and squeezed their mother's shoulder. The music started. The opening notes were soft, gentle. This wasn't a powerful, dramatic piece like her first performance. This was something quieter, more intimate, and somehow that made it scarier. Maya began to sing, and immediately she knew something was wrong. She was thinking too much, trying to remember the techniques the vocal coach had taught her, worrying about breath control and pitch and all the things she'd never worried about before. Her voice sounded fine, technically good even, but it felt empty. She could see it in the judges' faces. This wasn't the same magic. This was just a good singer singing a pretty song. Maya's heart sank. She was halfway through the piece and she was losing them. The audience was polite, attentive, but that electric connection from the first performance wasn't there. She'd been so worried about living up to expectations that she'd forgotten how to just be herself. Then her mother coughed. Just a small sound, but Maya heard it. She looked down at her mother in the wheelchair, at this woman who'd raised her alone after her father died, who'd worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, who'd never complained, never given up, never stopped believing that life could be beautiful even when it was hard. And Maya remembered something her father used to say. He'd tell her that singing wasn't about showing off or impressing people. It was about sharing your heart, about connecting one person to another through something bigger than words. Maya stopped trying to sing perfectly. She stopped thinking about technique. She looked at her mother and sang the way she used to sing in the car, when it was just her and her father's memory and the music. She sang for every Sunday morning they'd had together, for every sacrifice her parents had made, for every ordinary person who'd ever felt invisible. Her voice cracked slightly on one note. The vocal coach would have called it a mistake. But it was real, and that made it right. The judges leaned forward. The audience grew quieter, more focused. The connection Maya had lost came flooding back, stronger than before. By the time she reached the final verse, tears were streaming down her face again, but she didn't care. Her mother was crying. Her sister was crying. Jennifer was crying. Half the audience was crying. Maya held the last note, pouring everything into it, and when it finally faded away, the silence that followed felt sacred. Like everyone needed a moment to come back to themselves, then the applause erupted. Another standing ovation, somehow even more powerful than the first. The judges were on their feet immediately. The middle judge wasn't even trying to hide his tears this time, but Maya barely noticed. She was looking at her mother, who was trying to stand up from her wheelchair. Maya's sister helped her up, and her mother stood there applauding, mouthing the words "I love you" over and over. Maya had spent her whole life trying to be invisible, trying not to take up too much space, trying to fit into the small box the world had given her. But standing on that stage, she realized that making yourself small didn't protect you. It just made you disappear, and she was done disappearing. Whatever the judges decided, whatever happened next, Maya had already won the only prize that mattered. She'd found her voice, and she was never going to lose it again. Maya didn't win the competition. The young soprano with the perfect technique took first place. The singer-songwriter came in second. Maya placed third. When they announced the results, the audience booed. Not at the winners, but at the decision. People shouted that it wasn't fair. Some even walked out in protest, but Maya just smiled. She accepted her third-place trophy, hugged the other performers, and felt completely at peace. Because somewhere between that first performance and this moment, she'd realized something important. She hadn't been competing against anyone else. She'd been competing against the version of herself that was too afraid to sing out loud. And that version of her had lost the moment she stepped onto that stage. The months that followed surprised her. Record labels called, but they wanted to change her. Make her younger, hipper, more marketable. Maya politely declined. A reality show wanted to follow her around with cameras. She said no to that too. She did accept the offer from the vocal coach, though, the one who'd reached out after her first performance. Twice a week after work, Maya drove to the city for lessons. She kept her job at the accounting firm. People thought she was crazy. Why would you keep doing tax returns when you could be famous? But Maya liked her job. It was steady, predictable, and it paid the bills. The singing didn't need to be her career. It just needed to be hers. 6 months after the competition, Maya got an unexpected call. It was from a nursing home across town. The activities director explained that many of their residents had seen Maya's performances online. Several of them were immigrants, like her father had been. They'd asked if Maya would come sing for them. Maya almost said no. She'd been turning down most requests, trying to keep her life normal. But something about this felt different. She said yes. The nursing home was small, a little worn around the edges. The activities director led Maya into a common room, where about 30 elderly people sat in chairs arranged in a semicircle. Some were in wheelchairs. A few had oxygen tanks. One man was clearly sleeping, his chin on his chest. "Everyone," the director announced, "this is Maya, the singer I told you about." An old woman in the front row looked up at Maya. She had dark eyes and deep wrinkles, and she was holding a tissue in her hand. "You're the one who sang for her father," she said in a thick accent. "Russian maybe, or Polish?" "Yes," Maya said. "He passed away 10 years ago." The woman nodded. "My husband has been gone 15 years. I have not sung since he died. We used to sing together in the old country, but when he left, my voice left too." Maya felt a lump forming in her throat. She looked around the room at all these faces. All these people who had lived full lives, loved and lost, and were now sitting in a nursing home waiting for their own stories to end. She understood something then. Her performances had never really been about her. "What did you and your husband used to sing?" Maya asked. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Old songs. Folk songs from home. Nobody here knows them." Maya sat down next to her. "Would you teach me one?" For the next 2 hours, Maya didn't perform. She learned. The woman taught her a song in a language Maya didn't understand. Other residents joined in, their shaky voices finding strength in the familiar melodies. The man who'd been sleeping woke up and started singing in Italian. A woman from the Philippines taught everyone a lullaby her mother used to sing. Maya sang with them, sometimes leading, sometimes following. There was no stage, no judges, no cameras. Just a group of people sharing something that words alone couldn't express. When it was time to leave, the old woman with the tissue grabbed Maya's hand. "Thank you for reminding me that my voice still matters." Maya cried the whole drive home. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about those people, about all the voices that had gone silent because no one was listening anymore. She thought about her father, who'd sung in the factory even though nobody cared. She thought about herself, singing alone in her car for 17 years. The next morning, Maya called the nursing home and asked if she could come back. Then she called another nursing home, and another. She started visiting every Sunday, her one day off. Sometimes she sang. Sometimes she just listened. Sometimes she brought her father's old CD player and they all sat together remembering. Word spread. Other people who'd seen Maya's videos started reaching out. A woman who'd always wanted to sing but was told she was too old. A man who'd given up music to work in construction. A teacher who sang in the shower but never in front of anyone. They all had the same story. Life had convinced them their voices didn't matter. Maya started inviting them to join her at the nursing homes. At first it was just 2 or 3 people. Then 5, then 10. They formed a group. These ordinary people with extraordinary voices that nobody had ever heard. They called themselves the Sunday Singers, and they performed at nursing homes, community centers, anywhere people had forgotten they deserved to hear music. Nobody got paid. Nobody became famous. But every week, Maya watched people who'd spent their whole lives being invisible stand up and share their gifts. She watched residents in nursing homes smile for the first time in months. She watched families cry as their elderly parents sang songs from their youth. One Sunday, almost a year after the competition, Maya was setting up at a new nursing home when a young woman approached her. She looked about 20 and she was crying. "My grandmother is here," the young woman said. "She has dementia. She doesn't recognize me anymore. She doesn't speak. But just now when you were singing, she started humming along. It's the first sound she's made in 6 months." Maya took the young woman's hand. "Would you like to sing with us?" "I can't sing," the young woman said. "Yes, you can," Maya said. "Everyone can sing, we just forget we're allowed to." The young woman sang with them quietly at first, then louder. And her grandmother, who couldn't remember her own name, hummed along to every song. That night, Maya drove home with her father's CD player on like always. But this time she didn't sing along. She just listened and thought about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been invisible. Just another person going through the motions, hiding the best parts of herself because the world had taught her that ordinary people didn't get to do extraordinary things. She'd been wrong. So completely wrong. The competition trophy sat on her shelf at home, 3rd place, and she never looked at it. What mattered was the photo next to it. 30 people, young and old, standing together at a nursing home, all of them singing. In the front row stood Maya, arms around 2 elderly residents, all of them laughing. That was her real prize. Not fame, not recognition, but the knowledge that she'd given people permission to be heard. Maya still worked at the accounting firm. She still took care of her mother. She still sang in her car every single day. But now when people asked her what she didn't just say accountant anymore. She said, "I help people find their voices." Because that first performance, the one where everyone laughed when she walked out, hadn't just changed her life. It had started something bigger. A reminder that beauty could exist anywhere, that it was never too late, that ordinary people doing ordinary things could still create magic. And every Sunday in nursing homes across the city, that magic continued, one voice at a time, one song at a time, one forgotten person at a time, being reminded that they still mattered.